Remember how a couple months ago when I did my first commentary about Jared Kushner telling you that the minute that he opened up his mouth about black people, he would not stop talking every time he ran his mouth. Now, I'm about to play a clip for you again uh, with something new that Jared Kushner has said, but it's not far off from what he said the first time. As a matter of fact, he actually doubled down on his douchebaggery.
We've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful. And what you're seeing throughout the country now is a groundswell of support in the black community because they're realizing that all the different bad things that the media and the Democrats have said about President Trump are not true. And so they're seeing that he's actually delivered, he's put up results, and a lot of people want to get on board to start working with President Trump because they know that, unlike most politicians who have been in Washington for decades, who talk and say all the right things, President Trump may not always say the right things, but he does the right things. He says what's on his mind, and he gets results. And so people want results. They're tired of politicians who are promising things and not delivering.
Well, he does say what's on his mind. He's really good at that. Jared,
I think we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that thing we've seen in a lot.
Sorry about that. I was trying to pause it. But anyway, so y'all just heard that clip right there from this Squidward looking creature on your screen by the name of Jared Kushner. This is about as bad or as worse as those comments he made a couple months ago, which was basically on the scale of the same thing, but he doubled down on it this time. And ironically, the clip that I played, of course, was coming from Fox News, but the headline says Kushner on working with Ice Cube on Platinum Plan. If there's one thing that I knew would come from this, is they're going to take what Ice Cube is doing or trying to do, and they're going to twist it into something that is probably going to be unrecognizable. I hope that is not the case. And they keep saying that they're working with him, but I hope that Ice Cube stands firm on his square when he says that he's not endorsing them, because then that'll go into another realm, and who knows where else they're going to take that. So Jared Kushner basically, in so many words, just basically said that if black people weren't so lazy, I'm just giving you the laid out version of it. If black people weren't so lazy, then they would not be in the predicament that they are in right now. That's loosely what he is saying. It's going back to that whole, oh, black people are so lazy. He went and said that 45, he wants to do all these things for black people, but black people are going to want to have to work, as if black people don't just don't want to do anything. Like, again, going back to that shiftless notion. Y'all saw the video I just recently did where I snapped about how in Ward 8 in DC, black people wanted to work those construction sites, but they put a loophole in there and they undercut the black people from working, and they went to outside sources and got immigrants who most likely could have been illegal immigrants and put them in their place. And they're not even from that ward, and they're probably not even in DC. They're probably from Maryland or Virginia. Like, look at what they did in order to do that, just so they wouldn't have to pay them as much, because they know that the people that they got there will work unlivable wages, and then have the nerve to say that black people are lazy. Like, that's pretty much the cycle that they do, or what they do. And then this is coming from Jared Kushner. Mind you, Jared Kushner was born with a platinum plated spoon in his mouth. This guy has never, ever had to struggle, and married into a family that never had to struggle either. His family has been known to be some world-class slumlords, where they pretty much are the slumlords of these low-income areas, the same places that he is talking about, where he says black people are quote-unquote lazy. And granted, like I said, that didn't come out of his mouth, but that's what he was saying. Let's just be real here. We don't have to like try to put a puzzle together to figure out what he was saying. That's what he was saying without actually saying it. So it's very easy for him to make these kinds of comments in the way that he does, because he's saying it from a very elitist standpoint. And keep in mind his last name. Yeah, he's a part of the J community. So that's why whenever they talk about the problems they got going on, I really don't want to hear it, because all I keep hearing in the back of my mind is people like him talking. Granted, all of them won't probably say something like that, but a lot of them do. They come from a very elitist thinking standpoint. And these are the type of people that swear up and down they know what's good for us. I would not take advice from Jared Kushner on a bad day. I would rather open up a Snapple, flip over the cap, and get advice from it. I would rather get advice from the back of a cereal box. I would rather get advice from a fortune cookie before I get any type of advice or listen to half of or anything that this fool on your screen has said or is saying. I still believe that that Ivanka wears the pants in that relationship. I truly believe that. But like I said, Jared Kushner exposes himself every time he talks, because this is the second time this year that I've heard him say something towards black people, and it's been in this very condescending, snarky, sniveling, elitist tone that I don't like. Now, of course, you're going to have some of them co-colonizing cohorts and say, oh, what he was saying was facts. What he was saying was facts. You do realize that he's talking about you too, because let's be real here. When they talk about in the tone that he says, he's talking about the collective of black people. He's not just talking about a certain set. He's talking about the collective, because he is one of the people that probably feels he's above even those who are of a status higher than him, even if they are black. I wouldn't be surprised if Jared Kushner felt he was better than Robert F. Smith, and Robert F. Smith can run circles around his fortune. So, but it's just, and you can tell Jared Kushner was what I can look at Jared Kushner and tell he was one of them boys in school that just did and said anything to set anybody off. And then if he got checked, he'll wonder why he got checked. He reminds me of them type of people. He reminds me of the person that was probably a low-key bully, but then would play the victim role real fast to try to get the person off of him. That's the kind of, like, that's just the kind of person in my mind who Jared Kushner is to me. That's what I gather from him. But like I said, some people are going to agree with him because it was a jab, and a huge jab at that, towards black people. Like, that's just the type of person Jared Kushner is. Has always been. This is who he is. He is a feckless scumbag. I think that's one of the best ways I can describe him. He is a feckless scumbag, a piece of bacteria. And the crazy thing about it is a lot of people out here that don't call out his behavior. They try to make it seem like he's this completely unknown entity. He's not unknown. Sure, he's been hanging off the coattails of Trump's family for quite some time, because I didn't know who the hell he was before then. But I did know that, in Baltimore, in the low income areas, he owns a lot of those complexes up there that look like a complete wasteland. Like, they don't look like anything, like no kind of foundation built up over there to try to at least fix the problem. And then have the nerve to say that black people don't do this and black people are that and all this type of stuff. And that basically he was making a campaign run for 45. That's basically what it was. If you vote for 45, then maybe we can pull you out of this, but we can't do this. You know what it was? It was the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's what it was. He did a whole song and dance with what you heard, but basically it comes back to him saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. This coming from a guy, like I said, who has never had to struggle. So he could never relate. He's probably never lived around one black person in his life, and if he did, it was probably his butler and or his maid. But y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Okay, I had to come back on here and add this little bit of additional information in here, because it was some stuff that I had found out about not only Jared Kushner, but more so his family. This is a more focused part on his family, more so his dad, because I really didn't know too much about his family life. I just knew he had a platinum plated spoon, but it turns out that his dad actually was arrested and thrown into jail by the former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, who is nothing to to throw a parade over himself. But anyway, basically for being a fraudster himself. So see, that's why when Jared Kushner says the stuff that he says, it doesn't stand out at all, or anyone in his position. And that's the only way Jared Kushner was able to come into his wealth, because the dad had to leave the money into somebody's hands, and Jared was that person that he left it, whose hands he left it in. And then I also found out that one of the buildings that he owns, that I kept telling you about the slumlord stuff, the address, ironically, is 666. Either that's the address or that's the name. I can't think. It's one of the two, but someone down in the comments can correct me. Now, if that's not any irony, then I don't know what is. Because people, like I said, people have been going in on Jared Kushner all day, and rightfully so, because his name is trending like #1 on Twitter worldwide because of these comments that he made. And what's crazy is you have, of course, black people that's going in on him, and then you even have people who are outside of the community that's going in on him too, because they see it for what it is. And the thing is, he's like I said, he speaks from a place of privilege and a place of being an outsider and thinking he knows what's best. But like I said, this is one thing that annoys the hell out of me when it comes to palm colored people like him. They have all this money and have all this status, and a lot of the ways that they get their money is nothing to, be proud of. Like, you got to be a pretty messed up person to be rich and white and still get thrown in the jail. And I'm talking about his dad. And who knows what else goes on in his family. But Mr. or Miss Ivanka Trump, because like I said, I swear to God, he wears the skirt in this relationship. You can just look at him and tell. And then I also found out that he is a part of the task force for the woo-woo. Like, how it's like this guy did not get any position on merit. Nepotism, because of the family he married into. So if he's over the task force for this virus, for what's going on, he's been doing a very slack ass job of that too. That's why I put on Twitter that he has failed at his white privilege. Because I can't think of one single solitary thing that Jared Kushner was successful at in the position that he's in. A lot of people even said when he first went into the position that he had 4 years ago, we was like, who is this Jared Kushner? Many of us didn't even know that he was married to Ivanka Trump. And when we found out that's who he was married to, it was like, oh, nah, it makes sense. Because then again, 45 started slapping and throwing people into positions that they didn't need to be into. Because, he started firing people left and right, like in the summer of 2017. They didn't even make it a whole year. And yet he's still here. And I tell you, the only reason he's still here is because of who he's married to. He's married to daddy's little girl. But there's probably so much more that I could say involving Jared Kushner, but I'm giving y'all some surface level stuff. But I'm sure if you continue to dig deep enough, it'll be amazing, and not in a good way, of what else you'll be able to find about this POS.